Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly study on the Torah portion. This week we're starting a new book, the book of Shemot, and the portion for this week is also called Shemot. We're gonna see why this name Shemot is important, what actually does that mean, what hint is giving us about what we should expect in the rest of the book, and also in this Torah portion as well. We will be talking about also Shovavim, these important 6 weeks that we follow together with this one that we start in the book of Shemot. How these weeks actually are useful for us to correct certain attributes, negative attributes in our lives. And we're going to talk also about the parsha itself and what the hidden meanings of certain names inside this parsha are important for us to understand and know as well. So after the introduction, we will touch this subject. So I hope you enjoy it. Welcome back. Like I mentioned before, we are studying this week the Parsha Shemot. This Parsha is basically in the book of Shemot, wrongly named Exodus. In reality, this book should be called Names. And this book, Shemot, is or the book itself, it's called Shemot because he started naming the people that went down to Egypt and together with Jacob. What we're gonna see is that there's something in the translation that we can actually call it differently. Also, what we're gonna see is that there's some hidden names in this book as well. We're gonna specifically in this parsha, we're gonna see that the 42 names of God, the Ana Bechoach, is alluded as well in here, and also in future parshas, we're gonna see also with the parting of the seas that we're gonna see also the 72 names alluded as well. And as we do our study, we're gonna see how this transpires. As always, we start doing a little an introduction to the parsha, what it is all about, to put it into context. So when we study it, we know what we're talking about or which part of the parsha we are actually talking about. So what happened in the book of Shemot, the book of names, the book of Exodus? So the children of Israel start multiplying in Egypt, and at that time, a new pharaoh just arose in Egypt, and he didn't know anything about Joseph. And what he does is he start basically enslaving the Hebrews at that time, and then he then sees that something is going to happen in the future, that someone is going to come in and basically liberate these people. So he orders some midwives, two in specific, Sifra and Pua, to make sure that they kill any male baby that is born. But they do not comply, and part of it was also to cast them in the Nile. So there's a child that is born to a woman called Yocheved, and she was the daughter of Levi, and she had a husband called Amram. And when they have a baby boy, what they did was, in order to protect this baby boy, they put him in a basket, and then the sister of this baby boy named Miriam stand, and she started watching from far away to see what's happening or what happens with the baby. And what happens is that the Pharaoh's daughter discovered the boy, and then she takes this baby, right, as her own son, and she names the baby Moses or Moshe, meaning, that she basically draw these kids, out of the water. And Moses or Moshe, he actually is born in the palace, and of this woman that raised him as his son. And he started then going out of the palace and discovering the hardship of the people, the Hebrews that live in the land. Then he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and he kills the Egyptian. And we're going to see what is the importance of mentioning that part, the killing of the Egyptian. What does this mean, the killing? And we're going to see that has not a lot with the killing as killing a person itself. Then he sees two Hebrews, fighting each other, and he tells them, to stop the fight and that kind of stuff. And they reveal to him basically that they saw what he did to the Egyptian, that they killed him. So he knows now that everybody knows that he did what he did. So he runs away and he goes to a place called Midian. There, he helps a person that we're going to see in the future. He even has his own parsha. He's not a Hebrew, but he receives a parsha called Yetro. And Yetro has a daughter, and this daughter was saved by Moshe from certain people in a well. Again, the theme of the well, which is Chesed, drawing waters from the well. And he marries this daughter of Yitro, and her name is Zipporah. And he becomes a shepherd and for Yitro. What happened is then one of the sheep basically goes astray, and while looking for this sheep, he sees that a burning bush appears to him in the foot of Mount Sinai. And Mount Sinai, we need to understand that Mount Sinai, even though we might see it as something lovely and that kind of stuff, it was lovely. We received a lot from there, but the meaning of Mount Sinai means, the zenith. The zenith means the hatred, the mount of hatred. And God appeared basically on that, right? And he instructed him to go to Pharaoh and to say to Pharaoh to let his people go so they may serve him. And Moshe and his brother Aaron basically do that together, because Moshe didn't know how to speak well, according to what we see here, or couldn't. He had basically a problem with his tongue, right? So he had Aaron as a spokesman. In Egypt, Moshe and Aaron assembled all the elders of Israel and tells them, that the redemption is about to come. And the people believe, but Pharaoh refuses to let them go. And the Parsha basically finishes with this intensifying suffering of the people of Israel, and Moshe asking, you asked me to come over here and do this, and however you, meaning God, have not, helped them leave from bondage, and that's how the Parsha finishes. Basically, leave us like in a low at that moment, but it's because of what's going to happen later, which is going to be a really nice moment of miracles and wonders that we're going to see. So, like I mentioned before, this book is called Shemot. It is translated as Exodus, but it's not called Exodus. The real name is Names, and we're going to see why. One of the things that we need, before we start, studying it, we need to understand is the following: that this Parsha, Shemot, is one of the 6 parshiot that we're gonna be studying in the next 6 weeks, and these 6 parshiot that we're studying are called Shovavim altogether. And Shovavim comes from basically it comes from the first letter of each of the names of those parshas. So we start with Shemot, that's where we get the Shin. Then we're gonna see Veira, that's where we got the Vav, the Bo, got the Beit. Then Vishlach, which we got another Beit, and Yetro, we got a Yod, and then Mishpatim, and that's where we have Shemot, Ve'ira, Bo, Shelach, Yetro, Mishpatim. The first letter make the word Shovavim, and Shovavim in ancient Hebrew is translated as irresponsibility. Now you're gonna say, so why is this important? Why do I need to basically pay attention to the responsibility? Because it's basically we're gonna be correcting this side or a side effect of our egoism called irresponsibility, not caring for our soul, not caring for neshama. And each of these parsha, they correspond to one of the sefirot in the tree of life, the part of seramping. Seramping is basically Chesed, Geburah, Tifaret, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and then you have Malchut in the bottom. Malchut is considered a different parsuf, but this parsuf seramping is basically all this. So what we're doing is we're trying to connect to each of these sefirot, right? To the point that we then in Yesod, when we connect to Yesod, we connect once again to the forces of who? To the forces of the Tzaddik, the forces of Yosef, right? And that's why we see in Exodus also, and the Exodus, and the real Exodus, not the name of Exodus' book, in the real Exodus, that the bones of Joseph were taken with them, right? Because now they're connected to this patriarch's energy, the energy of the Tzaddik, the energy of the Brit, the energy of the covenant. And what we are doing during these 6 weeks is the following. We're correcting irresponsibility in our lives created by the ego, by just being careless about spirituality. And also we are working with the laws of cause and effect in our lives. Why? Because these 6 parshiot fall during the time of 2 zodiacal signs called Capricorn and Aquarius, and they are actually the planet Saturn is actually ruling these signs, and Saturn is considered the great teacher, the one that actually enforces this cause and effect, this great tikkunim that we need to go through. So this is a great opportunity to use this force that Saturn is putting into us for this tikkunim, for this thing that we might see as bad. Things might be getting out of order. Remember Aquarius and Saturn, and things like that. Mean sometimes chaos, and inside this chaos there might be an order that is really soon coming. So this is why it is important to know about these 6 weeks with this 6 parshat. Okay, now, so we're gonna start reading and studying, and we're gonna start on chapter 1, verse 1. He says, "Ve'ele shemot bnei Israel haba'in Mitzrayima et Yaakov ish bebeto bao." And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, Ishmael, and his household came. But this is the thing, when we read this, we can also read it the following way. We can read it as, these are the names of the sons of Israel who are coming to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household. However, you're going to see that some Kabbalah says you shouldn't read it that way. You should read them also as, these are the names of the sons of Israel who are coming out of Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household. Right? So there's 3 ways to see things in with this verse in specific. But usually what you're gonna see is who came to Egypt, but it's in reality you can do it this way, and it should be this way. These are the names of the sons of Israel who are coming to Egypt with Jacob. And why isn't it like in the present that is happening right now? Because we need to think that this is what is happening right now. There's the children of Israel are coming to Egypt. They're falling into that deception of Mitzrayim. But also we need to act into the other translation, which means also, these are the names of the son of Yaakov who are coming out from Egypt, right? Because every year we come out of Egypt. Every year is an opportunity. In fact, you need to see every year as an opportunity, a new life, a new reincarnation, in which you will have this opportunity to do an exodus, right? Exodus from egoism to altruism, an exodus from the desire to receive for the self to a desire to receive for the sake of imparting to others, to giving to others, to share with others the light, right? So as always, we use Rabbi Yaakov Abu Haseira's commentaries, and later we're going to use Ramchal if we have the time. But one thing that Rabbi Yaakov Abu Haseira wants to make sure we understand that a person needs to understand that when the Torah talks about the man and his household in this place, it's about like the nefesh is considered a woman in relation to the ruach, whereas the ruach is considered a man. Yet both of them are considered as women in relation to the neshama, whereas the neshama is considered a man. This is based in the Arizal. So what we see is the relationship of the nefesh to ruach is the nefesh is a woman, the ruach is a man, but then the neshama is a man for both of them, right? And that's something that we need to understand. So when he says, each man with his household, he's talking about these levels of the soul and these other sub levels that we call ruach and nefesh. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. The numerical value of the word Mitzrayim, right? Mitzrayim to Egypt is 385. 385. The same as Shekhinah. Because our sages, point out that or basically ask which of the people of Israel is worthy of cleaving to the Shekhinah. And they say, et Yaakov, with Yaakov. The one that possesses this characteristic to basically be connected to the Shekhinah is Yaakov. And why? Because Yaakov, each letter, the Yod, the Ain, the Kuf, and the Beit, they're acronyms. The Yod stands for Yehud, which is unification. The Ain stands for Anava, which is humility. The Kuf stands for Kedusha, which is holiness, and the base stands for Bracha, which is blessing. So each man with his household came with Yaakov, came with these things: unification, humility, holiness, and blessing. And they need to get out from Egypt with the same, we say midot, with the same characteristic: unified, with humility, in holiness, and also blessed, which they were blessed basically because they came out with a lot of things that the Egyptian gave to them, right? So when the people, the man basically, like mentioned before, refers to the neshama, and his household refers to the nefesh and ruach. So the people that exert themselves in holiness and purity to perfect the aspect of their soul, which is the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, are basically these people that came with Yaakov. And then he says on verse 8 and 12, a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, behold, the nation of the children of Israel is more numerous and stronger than us. Come, let us deal wisely with it, lest it increase, and when a war should take place, it too will join our enemies and wage war against us and go up from the land. Who are these enemies? These enemies are the good midot, the midot of Kedusha. If these people, leave basically these forces, this klipot, right? They feed from the light that is in this, what we call in this state of noga, this state of kind of like the sunset, where there's light, but it's almost night at the same time. They feed on that very, vague light. They feed on that, but if what they have leaves, then they are in total darkness, and the light leaves, and that means that they're dead, right? So in order to keep themselves alive, they need to keep these, we'll say, vessels that are trapped in there, these sparks that are trapped in there, as slaves inside. So, but these sparks, if they somehow connect with the Kedusha, they can be liberated, basically joining the enemies of Egypt, or Pharaoh, which is the eagle. And then, basically it's the end of Mizraim, the end of this type of slavery, spiritual slavery. And then he says, so they appointed taskmasters over it in order to afflict it with a burden and to build store cities for Pharaoh, Piton and Ramses. But as much as they would afflict it, so it will increase and so it will spread out. And they became disgusted because the children of Israel. So the new king that arose, this refers to the Yetzer Hara, and in previous parsha we saw that Joseph was also a viceroy, right? He was the second in command. So you have this Yetzer Hara, but it was dominated by the Kedusha, that was Joseph. And this time, this king, basically, they forget about Joseph. Now Kedusha doesn't have a grasp to the Yetzer Hara, so now the Yetzer Hara can do whatever it wants with these parts, right? And so what it does is these Yetzer Hara start ruling over Egypt, and Egypt basically can be seen as a side of impurity, right? Or Tuma. And it is said that the children of Israel, if they were not saved, they would have reached, the 50th gate of impurity. They reached the 49th gate, which is almost there, right? But they were then liberated from there. And they reached then, the side of Kedusha, which is holiness, right? And that's something to keep in mind when we are looking at this parsha as well. This is a fight within ourselves, and this is a fight between the good and the bad. One thing that also we need to have in mind is the following. In the previous parsha, we talk about how the name of the Creator was inside each of the patriarchs, right? Yitzhak had the Yod times 8. Yaakov had the Yod times 7. Joseph had the Yod times 6. Abraham had the name El times 7. But Joseph was also not only Yod times 6, but he also was El times 5. So he was basically an union of these two names together. And then 156, when it was double, it was 314, which is the name Shaddai. And this is something that you're going to see in as we read the parsha, that the Creator tells Moshe, I basically manifested myself to the patriarchs as Shaddai. And Shaddai basically, has a shin and then the word dai, which means stop. So it was a very restricted revelation. Now what we're going to see is that this is going to be a bigger revelation. This is where we're going to see new names appearing, new basically ways for the children of Israel to continue the corrections of the patriarchs. Not only the patriarchs, opened that door, but now the patriarchs were only one people. Now we have a whole conglomeration of people becoming one. And that's the whole point of the book of Shemot. That instead of being one Shem, right, is Shemot, names. A lot of names coming as one. And what we're going to see also as well is that as they fail, basically the ups and downs of this exodus from Egypt, these up and downs are going to help them somehow in making some tikkunim as they go to the Holy Land. So it says, a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. and said to his people, this is a Yetzer Hara talking to his legions. Behold, the nation of the children of Israel. This refers, to those people who call themselves Israel, those who are directly with the Creator or want to be connected directly to the Creator, and also these traits and desires of altruism within our personal self. They have become more numerous and stronger than us. God let us deal wisely with it. And when a war should take place, it too will join our enemies and go up from the land, and so they appointed taskmaster and all that. So basically it says, hey, there's a word here, and it says when a war should take place, and the word is vehaya. That word vehaya, which means and when, is refers to the inevitable. Something's going to happen. In other words, the Yetzer Hara is saying we're always at war against the side of holiness, for it is our arch enemy. So that means, a war is always going to take place. And it too, the nation, it too will join our enemies and wage war against us, because even though they are in this low state, these are sparks of holiness trapped in a klipot, right? That need to be liberated and go up. Basically, these sparks of holiness, being risen up from the land. In other words, they will not be longer under the control of the Yetzer Hara. So they need to deal with it wisely. So they appointed taskmasters, and the taskmaster referring to all the different ways that the Yetzer Hara will entice us to do the wrong thing, to make sure that we do a sin, because one sin follows another sin, right? Just as a good deed follows another good deed. And it says, in order to afflict it with their burden. So the taskmaster were over the children of Israel, and it was afflicting them. And they built store cities for Pharaoh. The word Pharaoh implies subjugation, right? As the word Parehu, which means subjugated. This is from Mishlei Proverbs 4:15. But basically, what we have is a Yetzer Hara has subjugates a person, has this ego as an agent or as a pharaoh that subjugates a person to do the wrong thing. And let's continue. Say the chief of Midian has 7 daughters, so he jumps to chapter 2. And before we jump to chapter 2, what I want to read is from Ramchal. Ramchal has a good explanation of, because now we're gonna see that after that Moshe is born. Moshe is basically drawn out from the waters, right? So on Shemot 2 verse 4, it says, and his sister stood from afar to know what will happen to him, what will happen to Moshe, right? It says the Torah informs us that the following about the birth of Moshe, that his parents concealed him for 3 months, and these 3 months have to do. I'm not gonna mention the names of the months. That's a different class, basically, is like the class of astrology and things like that. But there are 3 negative months in the year, right? And this is what it means. It was hidden from these 3 months actually. And realizing they could no longer keep him concealed, they put him in a basket. And the important thing that being put in the basket was the following: the redemption for the children of Israel came from a person that was saved in a basket, a teva, right? And Noah also was saved humanity, if you will, by putting himself, his family, and the animals in a teba as well. And it has to do also with water, right? The water as well. So and they place this basket, among the reeds of the bank of the river, while his sister Miriam was watching from afar to wait and see. And it says also, from afar to know what will happen to him, right? So the word to know is leda, to know what, which is ma, what will happen to Moshe. So leda ma yoselo. Chazal teaches that Miriam was informed via prophecy that her brother Moshe was destined to become leader and savior of the Hebrews. On a deeper level, we can say that Miriam was watching from afar to see how the Creator was going to orchestrate these events so Moshe can become a leader. So looking from afar is looking through that vision, right? The word ma, mem, he, is one of the names of the Creator. When each of the letter of the 4-letter Yod-Heh-Vav-He, name Hashem, is spelled, we arrive to that numerical value of ma. And ma is the numerical value is 45. This name ma, which represents Tifaret, also represents Tikkun. So you got Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon. Ab is Chokma, Sag is Bina, Ma is Tifaret, and Bon is Serampin. So it says after that the generation that was redeemed from Egypt through Moshe was referred as Dor Deah, the generation of knowledge, stating that Miriam waiting, Leda'ah, rather than Lada'at, the appropriate verb for of to know, right? The Torah is alluding of the Dor Deah, Leda'ah, with a hey at the end, Lamed Dalet Ain Hey, which means, Dor Deah, the generation of knowledge. Miriam was waiting basically to see whether Moshe would attain a spiritual level called Ma, the level 45, needed to benefit the generation of Dor Deah, the generation of knowledge. Even the Avot, in their spiritually perfected state, were unable to attain the level of Ma. As the Creator told Moshe, I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, but my name, the Yod-Heh-Vav-He, did not make known to them. And this is where we're talking, that it was the revelation given to the fathers was kind of like restricted somehow, even though, they were so connected to the Creator, it was restricted. Now the Creator is going to manifest more light, but it has to be through the redemption of these people and them becoming as one. Moshe's spiritual root is found in this name as well. The name Moshe can be broken down into the Shin, which is in the middle, and Ma. So you have Mem, He, and Shin. And the name Moshe is Mem, Shin, He. Meaning with the 3 lines of the letter Shin representing the 3 fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And representing also what is called balance, because you have Abraham who's Chesed, Isaac is Geburah, and Jacob who is the center pillar, right? Each of the Avot of fathers perfected their specific attributes, which represent 3 distinctive ways in which the Creator guides the whole world. In addition, the letter Shin represents the levels reached by the Avot. Moshe had Ma, the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-He, which is the Avot, the name that the Avot were unable to attain. Man, the person, is unable to attain an understanding beyond the spiritual root. Therefore, only Moshe was the one that merited to have such a lofty spiritual root and was able to attain such a level of understanding Miriam was watching to see whether the prophecy she saw, this vision that she saw, was being fulfilled, whether her brother would indeed reach that state required in order to become a leader and a redeeming agent for the Bnei Israel, right? And there's a part we're going to talk about now, and this is on Shemot chapter 2 verse 12-14. And he hit the Egyptian. This is when the Egyptian was abusing the Hebrews, right? And then after that, he sees these two Hebrews basically quarreling, fighting each other, and he tried to stop that quarreling. And they say, to kill me, to kill me, you say, as you kill the Egyptian. And there's a word there, to kill me, you say, as you kill the Egyptian. And Moshe was afraid and said, this matter has been known. And Pharaoh heard this matter and he wanted to kill Moshe, right? So it says here, the Ramchal says, that Moshe went to observe the Bnei Israel to see what was happening during this slavery, right? During their slavery. And he saw when the Egyptian was striking a Hebrew. Then Moshe hit the Egyptian, right? And it says here that Moshe did not literally hit him, but rather kill him by pronouncing one of the names of Hashem, the 42-letter name representing divine justice. This is alluded to in the Torah's description of Moshe striking the Egyptian, right? Ve'ich et Hamitzri. The word Ve'ich has the numerical value of 36, while the combined value of the first letter of the word Et Ha-Mitzri, for the word the Egyptian, represent an additional 6. Aleph is 1 and He is 5, totaling 42. The pronouncing of the 42-letter name awakened the attribute of justice, resulting on the death of the Egyptian. Okay, and that's on that verse, right? Then the next day, Moshe went out, assuming that nobody saw what he did to the Egyptian, and then when he saw the quarreling, he rebuked the two Hebrews, and one of them responded, to kill me, you say, as you kill the Egyptian. The response, to kill me, you say, allude to Moshe killing the Egyptian through saying alone, pronouncing the name of Hashem. So what the Parsha is telling us here, that in the verse, he hit the Egyptian. When we look, and let's to recap this, it's alluded the description of Moshe striking the Egyptian when he says ve'ich et hamitzri. The word ve'ich, which is vav yod kaf, has the value of 36, while the combined value of the first letter of the word et hamitzri represents the additional 6. Aleph is 1 and He is 5. So the Aleph from the word et and the He is from the word ha-mitzri, the Egyptian, right? That totals 42. But then when we go to the next, to kill me, you say, as you kill the Egyptian, and that's ve'omer mi shmecha la'ish. Actually, some ha la'ish. So in that verse where it says, to kill me as you kill the man, the Egyptian, you will find the name Yod Kaf Shin, and the name Yod Kaf Shin is found in that verse, and the name Yod Kaf Shin has to do with this part in the Ana Bechoach. Basically, in the Ana Bechoach, you see the third line, when you say Na Gibor, Dorshei Yehudecha Kevavat Shamrem, that's where we're going to find that name that Moshe used to kill this Egyptian. And I'm not going to go in depth on the Ana Bechoach. The Ana Bechoach itself is a lesson, a long lesson, and how to use it, why to use it, and how it is important each day for us to meditate on this prayer. Okay. It states here, that Moshe realized that the matter has been known, while the word Adaber, which is a Hey Dalet Beit Resh, here translate as the matter, referring to the killing of the Egyptian, can also be understood as the word, the speech has become known. So it says, as you kill me, as you kill the Egyptian. Then, when Moshe was running away, it says, so Moshe was afraid and said, this speech has been known. So this name now is known, right? So now we understand why he was fear, how he was feeling this fear, and why Pharaoh was reacting in the way he was reacting. And now what we see is the following. That Moshe was afraid to the extent that he needed to basically go, right, out of Egypt. And it says here, could he not have simply explained to Pharaoh what had transpired and why he felt it was inappropriate to kill the Egyptian? While Pharaoh's reaction will, per fact, has been, less than positive, he certainly would not have wished to kill Moshe, probably one of the heirs, to the throne of Mitzrayim, Egypt. But based on the information that we have, we see now that invoking a holy name was something that Moshe was concerned about and Pharaoh was concerned about, because this means this man has power. This man knows how to tap to that energy, and can basically kill the Klipo, destroy the Klipo, and liberate the sparks. And for Moshe was, how can he basically be using this name in the environment of Avodah Zarah, of idolatry, right? So Pharaoh also wanted to kill Moshe, because when he found out that Moshe killed the Egyptian with this word, right, with the power of this word, he now understood that Moshe has a strong connection to the Kedusha, and that's why Pharaoh wants to kill him, because if you kill that, then you can keep the sparks as slave, and in this way, the Klipo can continue living in that sense. Basically the side of Tumah, can be nourished by the dim light of these sparks that are inside. The Torah relates, and Moshe fled from before Pharaoh. The bird used to describe his flight as Barach, Beit Resh Chet. Chazal teaches that not only did the sword not inflict any harm upon Moshe, meaning the sword means that Pharaoh sent someone to kill Moshe, and this is according to a Mishnah, to Midrash, and they try, to cut Moshe's head, and Moshe's neck turns like as strong as marble, and they couldn't do it. And the word, it says here, in order to describe this flight, the word for flight is berech, which is beit resh chet. And Chazal teaches that the sword wasn't supposed to inflict harm on Moshe. So the executioner that was sent to kill Moshe, couldn't do anything. The letters bet resh chet in reverse spell the word for sword, which is chet resh beit, haref. This informs us the reversal of event. Instead of being executed, he fled. So there was no way, to be inflicted by the sword of the executioner. And let me see if so let's now go back to Rabbi Yaakov Haseid, and then if we have time, we go back to Ramchal, talk about. So Rabbi Yaakov Haseid talks about how Moshe made the basically the chief of Midian has 7 daughters. 7 again. Remember, number 7 alludes to the 7 midot, right? Serampin and Mahud. And he says, they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's sheep. The shepherds came and drove them away. Moshe got up and saved them and watered their sheep. They came to Reuel, their father, and he said, "How did you come so quickly today?" They replied, "An Egyptian man saved us from the hands of the shepherds, and he also drew water for us and watered the sheep." So the word for sheep, which is ulkohen, refers to the sheaf of the upper words, and it's related also to the word Kohen, which is a priest of Midian, right? Also Kohen. Midian refers to judgment, from the word midin, which is judgment. And the 7 daughters can be read as Sheva Vanot, 7 builders. Refers to 7 Sefirot from Chesed to Malchut, as I mentioned before. They came and drew water. Water always refers to Chesed, and to water their father's sheep. The father's sheep, it says, to basically, sheep always, are like the people who want to be connected to the Creator. The shepherds came and drove them. The word for the shepherds is haroim. Haroim might be read as well as haraim, the evildoers. Okay, so Hey, Resh, Ain, Yod, and Mem, Sofit. Moshe got up and saved them, meaning, save them because they were 7 Sefirot of good deeds. So he watered their sheep, meaning he gave them Chesed. And they came to Reuel, their father. And it's very interesting, they came to Reuel, their father, alludes to this, that they came to a person that can see the Creator, right? Can see the Creator, but it's not yet called Yetro, right? Then what we say is, he said to his daughter, "Where is he? Why did you leave the man? Summon him and let him eat bread." Moshe desired to dwell with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. So, how Yaakov Haseira said, that we know the 7 Sefirot upon there are 7 Sefirot upon which the whole world is founded, and the word Eich is where, or another form is another word is Eyo, where, alludes to 3 Sefirot, Hod, Mabina, and Dat, which are above these 7 from Chesed all the way to Malchut. So this is Chabad, right? The 3 Sefirot above the 7. So the person that wants to or wishes to cleave to the Shekhinah must allow himself to be influenced by the Aleph Yod He, which is the Eya, these 3 Sefirot, right? Then why do you leave the man? Summon him and let him eat bread. In other words, he must receive the neshama from the word of Hatzilut. This neshama is referred to as bread because it gives him spiritual sustenance. Moshe desires to dwell with the man. The soul of the tzaddik, in this case Moshe, desires only to cleave to the Shekhinah, right? Which, remember, when you are in a lower degree, you're considered feminine, higher degree masculine. In this case, Moshe is below the Shekhinah. He wants to dwell with the Shekhinah, so that's why it says, want to dwell with the man. Like we mentioned before, that the different levels of the soul can be considered male and female. For example, Ruach is higher, so it's considered man. Nefesh is lower, is considered woman. So in this case, the Shekhinah is higher than Moshe, so it's considered a man, and Moshe considered a feminine, from the feminine aspect. And then he says, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. The Sadi then is granted the Neshama from the word of Asilu, symbolizing the daughter Zipporah. So then he says, behold, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your forefathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? Hashem said to Moshe, I shall be as I shall be. And he said, so shall you say to the children of Israel, I shall be has sent me to you. And the name here is the name Asher, Ehie, Asher, right? And then he says, that to make sure that he tell them, he has sent me to you. And why did the children of Israel will ask a name for Moshe? Because this is something interesting, right? If they knew probably the Creator as Shaddai, probably even as Elohim, why now a new name, Ehie, Asher, Ehie? And this is very interesting. The name itself is a name that is not limited. While the name Shaddai was limited, it's a Shin, right, for the three patriarchs, and then Dai. Dai means there's enough. It's a stop. There's a stop. Now there's not a stop. Now he says, I shall be what I shall be. I basically use more like an spiritual evolution, spirituality. Now will become open to all these people through this name. And what we see is that here Asher here, the numerical value is 21, and in it's mentioned twice. So mentioned twice, we have this number 21 times 2 gives you 42, which alludes to the Ana Bechoach. Once again, Ana Bechoach, right? The 42 names of God, of the Ana Bechoach. Now, if you take the 21 and you multiply by 21 by itself, equals 441, which is the name of the word Emet. Emet has all the letters of the alphabet in it. How? You have the first letter, the middle letter, which is the Mem, and the last letter, which is the Tov. And all these three letters, what they form is three columns, which means balance. So basically, he's telling them, look, when basically the Creator is telling Moshe, look, when you go over there, you just say this name, and this name will be actually what will give them the hint that, hey, whoever sent me here is here to bring the balance of the three patriarchs, that existed before us, and now is more open, the sense, that Ehie, Asher, Ehie means, I shall be what I shall be. Basically, I'll be whatever they, as they unite or as they separate, that's where I'm gonna be, right? And very interesting, the name also has 3 Aleph. So 3 Aleph basically is the number 3, which implies balance as well. And Hashem basically is informing them that all his promises and decrees are conditional. If a person is evil and Hashem decrees something bad against him, the decree will only remain as long as this person stays evil. But if he repents, then the decree will be nullified. So that's why here, share here, I will be where I will be. I can be the judge, or I can be the liberator. I can be, whatever you want me to be, depending on how you live your life. Meaning, there be cause and effects, there will be tikkunim, but it's up to you. The name Ehie, Asher Ehie has the numerical value, as we mentioned before, numerical value of when we multiply by itself as Emet. So also, it's a hint that absolute truth depends on the truth of what will happen in the future. If a person stays evil, then it is true that he deserves the evil decree. But if he repents, then the decree is retracted, which is also an expression of the truth. And this is what we see, even though the decree was for the Jewish people, to be 400 years in Egypt, it was decreed to be less days than that or less years than that. Okay. Then he says, and the people believe, and they heard that Hashem has remembered the children of Israel, and that he saw the affliction, and they bowed prostrated before themselves. And Hashem said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a staff. He said, cast it into the ground. And he cast it to the ground, and it became a snake. Moshe fled from before it. Hashem said to Moshe, stretch out your hand and grasp it at the tail. He stretched out his hand and grasped it, and it became a staff in his palm. And what is this tells us is the staff represents basically the Torah. If you don't care about the Torah, basically you just cast it to the ground, falls to the ground, meaning you don't care about it, you don't care about your spirituality or anything like that, then that becomes a snake, like the primordial sin. We're in the state of the sin when the snake was basically, I would say, controlling the process of destruction and separation at that time. So that's the state that we are as well. When we don't care about spirituality, when we don't care about other people, when we don't care about anything, we are casting that staff out to the ground, and that staff becomes a snake. So we become just like the snake. We become an agent of hatred, an agent of disengagement with other people, separation, and things like that. And that's a true sin. The true sin is any action that creates separation between human beings and between human beings and nature. Okay. So then, when he grasped it, from the tail, he says, then it becomes once again a staff, right? So now, basically, if a person has abandoned the Torah and then he goes back to learn it, and he returns to the Torah regions to the original state, and the snake will be transformed into a staff of the living God, a staff that will make miracles. Okay. So it looks like we have some time now to read from Ramchal and finish with Ramchal. And Ramchal, to finish with this lesson, he's talking specifically of Shemot, chapter 4, verse 20. And he says, and Moshe took his wife and his sons, and he saddled them on the donkey. And we're going to talk about the donkey, right? And this is before Moshe went to Egypt. We already talked about, what happened, how the Creator basically revealed to Moshe a new name and all that. Now we're going to talk about after Moshe decides to go to Egypt and help liberate the people from Mitzrayim. And with this, we're going to stop. We can talk about this parsha. It has a lot of information. We can talk about it like for more than 3 hours. It has a lot of information, a lot of secrets, but we cannot cover them in the hour that we have. But let's read from Shemot 4, verse 20th. And Moshe took his wife and his son, and he saddled them on the donkey. This is according to Ramchal. The Torah relates that Moshe saddled them on the donkey. Which donkey? Hassal teaches that it was the same donkey Abraham Avinu rode to do the Akedah of Isaac, the binding of Isaac. And it's destined to be the same donkey the Messiah will arrive on. And you're going to say the same animals, it's going to be, we're going to see what's happening with the information he's giving us later. On a deeper level, this donkey alludes to the Klipa Noga, The klipot noga, these klipot that have a little light in it, and they can go to kedusha if they receive more light, or they can go to darkness if they don't, if they're. So it says when they're attached to tuma, they're impure, but when they're attached to kedusha, they become holy, right? We can illustrate this through an example of mundane, actions. A mitzvah is an act of kedusha, while an aveira, which is a sin, is an act of tumah. Eating an apple is not a mitzvah, but it's not also a sin. However, it depends on the manner that you're eating that apple. The proper manner of eating the apple can become a spiritual action when you associate it with kedusha, when you do the bracha, the blessing. On the other hand, if the apple was stolen, or the apple is eaten without bracha, then it becomes associated with tuma. The donkey is a representation of the klipa noga, which is in the rectified state, is a vehicle of kedusha. A donkey, which the Hebrew word for donkey is hamor, het mem vav resh, is the name given to the klipa noga because it represents a less refined aspect of spirituality. Meaning, the word hamor is devoid of spirituality, is comprised of the same letter as hamor. Like Homer, the word Homer actually, which is het vav mem resh, meaning that means physicality or matter. Physical, mostly matter. Homer has the same letters as the name for donkey, which is hamor. In comparison to kedusha, this less refined aspect is almost devoid of spirituality and is nothing more than pure physicality. So it's a homer, right? When the klipa noga is rectified, is subservient to the side of kedusha, to the side of holiness, it becomes a physicality that is perfected, and it becomes a vehicle to the kedusha to accomplish goals in this world. So it becomes the donkey, the homer. So homer becomes then hamor, right? When kedusha descends, it must be clothed in an outward appearance, an external clothing, similar to the physical world. The klipa noga is that external covering. So that's what it says in Yeshayahu 19:1, Isaiah 19:1. Behold, Hashem is riding on a light cloud, ab kol, and coming to Egypt. The Hebrew word ab, which is ayin bet, in addition to cloud, also means thick or less refined, which is the klipa noga. It is also kol, meaning light or lightweight, right? For this klipa is lowly and almost irrelevant in comparison to the kedusha, to holiness. This klipa, however, becomes a tool for kedusha to fulfill its purpose in the physical world. The donkey used by Moshe to redeem the Bnei Israel serves as the klipa noga used by kedusha to drive the other klipot of Tumah into submission. This was the same donkey saddled by Abraham Avinu when he took Isaac to the Akedah, to the binding, where it was used to prevent the Tumah from interfering with Abraham's mission at the Akedah. When Abraham told Ishmael, who was the embodiment of Tumah, to remain behind with the donkey and not to accompany them on the rest of the journey. This is the same donkey which will be used by the King Moshiach, the Melech HaMoshiach, to transform all the evil in this world into good and to make Tumah subservient to Kedusha. The steps required to bring about a tikkun to the entire world. And with those words, I will leave you. I hope you have enjoyed and learned about this Torah portion. Also, some of the secrets where the Ana Bechoach and all this stuff, was used, or at least the names inside the Ana Bechoach was used. And also, the importance of understanding that uh, these 6 weeks are weeks that we need to do some introspection and see in which part we have been irresponsible, and start connecting once again with that spirituality, with the foundation of who we are for real spiritually, and to start using that donkey, right, to start riding into our own Egypt, and try to liberate these sparks of holiness within ourselves, and also to share that light so we can also help others come out of their own shells and connect to the Creator and to spirituality. Because this is not one thing that you need to understand if you're studying Kabbalah, is that this is not our personal development only. This is a human spiritual development. We cannot think I am the one who's going to do this work because I am the one who wants to be connected to the Creator, that kind of stuff. That's good, but it means nothing if you are doing nothing for the other people, for the other person next to you, and try to share with this light. You don't force them. That's a problem with religion. They try to force things, and there's no forcing in spirituality. Everything comes at its time. You can influence, but you cannot force things. When you forcing things, you are creating a sin, meaning your person might feel, kind of like uncomfortable, and you're already creating separation. You're creating, something that we're not supposed to be. Now we're becoming that serpent. We need to grab that stuff again, and be firm, but be firm in a gentle way, influencing people, not forcing them to believe this or believe that because we think we have the whole truth, and we don't. For example, there's some of us that are teaching Kabbalah. There's people that know more than us, right? We're doing what we can with the knowledge that we have, but there's people that know a lot more than us, and they're rafts, and they have these groups and everything, all that, and they're doing really well and all that. And there's people that probably know more than them, and you don't even know that they exist or all that. There's people that may not know anything, and they might be more spiritual than those of us who are trying to teach you what we know. They're probably more spiritual than those that call themselves rafts, and they're more spiritual than all of those that know more than those people that call themselves rafts. But they're simple people, so knowledge means nothing. What means something is a connection with each human being, sharing the light with each human being. The study of Kabbalah, the study of the Torah, should lead us to that, should lead us to, as we study and we work internally in our own irresponsible behavior of disconnecting with spirituality, we need to understand that there are other parts, there's other sparks out there, which are part of our soul. They're sparks of the same soul that we have that also need correction, but their time probably has not come. We can talk to them and everything, we can expose them, but not force them. Okay, so that's all I have. I hope you have enjoyed. Hope you have a great Shabbat, and I'll see you next time in our next portion, Parsha Vayira. See you. Shalom.